The war was over. Humanity had lost. For years, the Terran Defense Fleet had fought against the Xelari Empire, a ruthless alien force that conquered entire civilizations without mercy. They had superior numbers, advanced weapons, and war strategies that had crushed countless species before. And now, humanity was just another name on their list of fallen enemies. Earth was burning. Human colonies were wiped out. The last fleets had been hunted down and destroyed. There was nothing left. Or so the Xelari thought, because in the vast emptiness of space, where wreckage from the final battle floated like a graveyard, a single warship still moved. The TNS Revenant.IT was an old battlecruiser, heavily damaged, its hull covered in scars from countless battles. It had no fleet, no backup, no allies. Just a few surviving crew members and a mission that no one believed in any more: revenge. The last survivor, Commander Elias Kane, stood on the shattered bridge of the Revenant, looking at the enemy fleet in the distance. His crew was exhausted, their supplies were running low, and the ship was barely holding together. But his eyes still burned with determination. "We should run," whispered Lieutenant Harris, his voice barely above a breath. "We can't win this." Elias clenched his fists. Running was never an option. If we run, humanity is truly dead. If we fight, maybe we give them something to fear. The crew exchanged glances. They all knew the truth: one warship against an entire fleet was suicide. But no one argued, because the alternative was surrender. And humans never surrendered. A ghost of the Xelari fleet drifted through space, scanning the battlefield for any remaining survivors. Their commander, High Warlord Vorak, stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Oblivion, watching the destruction they had left behind. "Nothing left," one of his officers reported. "The humans are gone." Vorak smirked. Pathetic creatures. They had fought hard, but in the end, they were just another weak species that had been wiped from existence. Then, an alarm blared. A human warship just powered up. Vorak turned sharply. "Impossible. We destroyed them all." On the screen, the image of a lone Terran battlecruiser appeared, its engines burning, its weapons charging. It was heavily damaged, barely operational. But it was moving, and it was coming straight for them. The fight begins. The Revenant opened fire first. The Xelari fleet didn't even have time to react before the first plasma cannons tore through the nearest enemy frigate. Explosions erupted as the ship was ripped apart. A single kill. A message. The Xelari scrambled into action. Fighters launched. Warships turned their cannons. The full force of the enemy fleet moved against a single warship. On the Revenant, alarms screamed as missiles and energy blasts slammed into the ship's failing shields. Sparks flew. Metal groaned. The crew fought desperately to keep the systems running. "Target their command ships," Elias ordered. "We won't win a long battle. We strike fast. We strike hard." The ship moved like a ghost, slipping through the wreckage of the battlefield, using debris as cover. The first Xelari destroyer exploded under a barrage of plasma torpedoes. A second warship lost its engines, drifting helplessly into the wreckage. But the Revenant was taking damage too. Shields down to 15%. Weapons overheating. Engines failing. And still, it fought. The fear spread. The Oblivion. Warlord Vorak watched in shock as his ships were being torn apart by a single human warship. "This is a trick," he growled. "Humans cannot be this strong." But his officers were panicking. "Sir, our fleet is in chaos. That ship is targeting our command vessels." Vorak slammed his fist on the console. "Destroy it! Now!" A single hit would reduce the human warship to nothing. But the Revenant was faster than death.it, dived straight toward the Oblivion, weaving between enemy fire, dodging plasma blasts that could have ended the fight in seconds. And then it did. The unthinkable. It rammed straight into the enemy flagship. The final strike. The impact sent a shockwave through both ships. The Revenant's hull cracked. Fires erupted inside. The crew was thrown against the walls. Elias struggled to stand, blood dripping from his forehead. He looked at his crew loyal, fearless, ready to die for humanity. "This is it," he said. "If we're going down, we're taking them with us." He activated the final weapon. The Omega Core Reactor.IT was a last resort self-destruct system designed to turn a warship into a bomb powerful enough to wipe out an entire fleet. "Goodbye, XLR," Elias whispered. The Revenant detonated. The explosion consumed the Oblivion in fire and energy. The shockwave spread across space, tearing apart enemy ships, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. A legend is born when the flames faded. There was nothing left of the Revenant. But there was also nothing left of the XLR fleet. The lone human warship had taken the enemy with it. Across the galaxy, the story spread like wildfire. The warship that refused to die. The humans who stood against impossible odds and won. And for the first time, the XLR felt something they had never known before. Fear. The war had been over for months. The XLR Empire had won. They had crushed the human fleets, burned their colonies, and left Earth a lifeless rock. Humanity was extinct, or so they believed. But something was wrong. XLR ships started disappearing, entire fleets wiped out without a single distress call. No wreckage, no survivors. Just silence. Whispers spread across the empire. Some called it a rebellion. Others thought it was pirates. But the captains who had seen it and survived, they called it a ghost. A warship that shouldn't exist. A warship that moved through the darkness, hunting them one by one. The first encounter commander Derek of the XLR battleship Warship was growing impatient. His fleet had been patrolling Sector 12 for weeks, searching for answers. They found nothing. But then the silence broke. "Sir." A panicked voice echoed through the bridge. "Unknown warship detected, heading straight for us." Derek frowned. "Show me." On the screen, a single Terran battlecruiser emerged from the darkness. That was impossible. Humans were gone. The ship's hull was blackened, its structure damaged. It should have been falling apart. Yet, it moved like a predator, silent, fast, precise. "No response to hails," an officer reported. "Then destroy it." The Vorok and its escort ships opened fire. Plasma cannons roared, lighting up the void. Missiles screamed toward the lone warship. The battle should have ended in seconds. But then the warship vanished. Not destroyed. Not hit. It simply disappeared from their scanners. Derek felt a chill run down his spine. Where did it go? Before anyone could answer, alarms blared. The warship was behind them. IT fired one shot. A massive energy blast cut through the Vorok shield like paper, slicing through the ship's hull. The entire vessel shook as explosions erupted inside. Derek barely had time to process what happened before the ship's engines failed. His crew screamed. Fires broke out. The bridge filled with smoke. Then, through the chaos, he heard it. A voice. "We are still here." And then, nothing. The ghost was gone. The fear spreads. The Vorak was found drifting days later, its crew shaken and silent. Other XLR fleets rushed to the sector, scanning for the ghost ship. They found nothing. But the attacks continued. One by one, XLR fleets vanished. Outposts went dark. Dreadnoughts were reduced to burning wrecks. The war was over. The XLR had won. But somehow, the humans were still fighting. The Emperor's wrath. High Emperor Exovac watched the reports with growing anger. This was unacceptable. The XLR Empire did not fear ghosts. "Find this ship," he ordered. "Destroy it. No more games." Admiral Korak, his most ruthless commander, assembled a trap. He positioned an entire fleet, 50 warships, around a barren moon, sending out a distress signal, pretending to be a crippled ship. They waited in silence. Hours passed. Then the ghost arrived. A single human warship against an armada. The XLR opened fire immediately. A storm of plasma and missiles filled space, tearing apart the darkness. But the ghost was faster. It weaved through the attacks, dodging everything, moving like it knew the future. It did not fire back. Instead, it did something worse. It spoke. You killed our people. The voice was deep, emotionless. Not human. Not machine. Something in between. You burned our home. You thought we were gone. The fleet hesitated. The voice seemed to come from everywhere. But ghosts never die. Then, the lights inside every XLR ship flickered. Their computers shut down. Their weapons failed. Their own warships turned against them. Admiral Korak stared in horror as his dreadnought's own cannons locked onto his escort ships and fired. He screamed orders, but no one could stop it. The ghost had taken control. The XLR fleet destroyed itself. And the lone warship disappeared. The truth is revealed back on the XLR homeworld. Emperor Exovac watched the destruction of his fleet. Fear crept into his bones. What is this? He whispered. A scientist stepped forward, hesitating before speaking. We analyzed the transmissions, Your Excellency. That warship is not normal. Zovac glared. Explain. The scientist swallowed hard. It's not crewed by humans. Not anymore. Zovac's eyes narrowed. The ship's systems are operating at speeds beyond human limits. The AI, it's learning, adapting. It is not just a machine anymore. Zovac clenched his fists. Then what is it? The scientist's voice was barely a whisper. It is vengeance. The end of the Empyrethi attacks never stopped. The XLR Empire, once unstoppable, was falling apart. Every time they sent a fleet, the ghost returned. It struck from the shadows, using their own ships against them. Their forces crumbled. Their planets rioted in fear. No one wanted to fight the humans anymore. Because the enemy they'd once crushed was no longer an army. It was a phantom. A legend. And one by one, the XLR understood the truth. They had won the war, but they would never know peace again. Because ghosts never rest. And this ghost would haunt them forever. The war was over. The United Terran Federation had fallen. Humanity was defeated. The Korthan Dominion, the largest and most powerful empire in the galaxy, had crushed Earth's forces. They had burned human colonies, destroyed their fleets, and wiped out every resistance force. There were no survivors. At least, that's what the galaxy believed. But they were wrong. Because in the darkness of space, hidden among the wreckage of the final battle, one Terran warship still remained. Its name was TNS Valkyrie, and it was about to remind the galaxy why humanity was feared. The last ship commander, Adrian Voss, sat on the bridge of the Valkyrie, staring at the enemy fleets patrolling the sector. There were thousands of them. Dreadnoughts, cruisers, battleships, an entire empire's worth of firepower. And against them, he had one ship. His crew was silent. They all knew the situation. They had no reinforcements, no allies, and nowhere to run. They had two choices: die hiding or die fighting. Adrian exhaled. We make them bleed. The crew nodded. No hesitation. No fear. The Korthan thought they had won. It was time to show them they were wrong. The first strike, the Valkyrie moved like a shadow, slipping between wreckage, its engines silent. The Korthan patrol fleet didn't even see it coming. Then, it struck. A single torpedo flew through space, slamming into the lead Korthan warship. The explosion ripped the ship in half. Before the enemy could react, the Valkyrie disappeared, vanishing into the wreckage. Panic spread. Korthan captains shouted orders. Ships turned their weapons in every direction. But the attacker was gone. Then, another explosion. And another. One by one, the patrol fleet was torn apart. The Valkyrie moved like a ghost, appearing, attacking, then vanishing before the enemy could respond. The Korthan had numbers, but the Valkyrie had speed, strategy, and vengeance. And it was just getting started. The Emperor's fury when news of the attack reached Emperor Korvax. He was furious. A single ship? He growled. Destroy it. Now, he sent a fleet of 100 warships to hunt the Valkyrie. a force powerful enough to crush an entire planet. But the Valkyrie was not a planet.it, was a weapon.as. The Korthon fleet searched for their target. The Valkyrie watched them from the darkness. And then it struck again. A dreadnought, the pride of the Korthan fleet, vanished in a ball of fire. Shock spread through the Korthan ranks. How? Then another ship exploded. Then another. And another. The fleet was being picked apart, one by one. Panic set in. The Korthan were powerful warriors, but they had never fought something like this. A single warship, moving faster than they could track, striking harder than they could stop. It was impossible. And yet, it was happening. The message at Movarik, leader of the Korthan fleet, watched in horror as his forces were annihilated. This was not war. This was a nightmare. Then, the Valkyrie sent a message. A simple, chilling message. Humanity is not dead. And we do not forgive. The Korthan admiral felt fear for the first time in his life. The Galaxy Watch's news of the Valkyrie spread across the galaxy. The unthinkable had happened. The Korthan, the greatest empire in the universe, was losing to a single ship. Rebellions erupted on occupied human worlds. The survivors of Earth, those who had hidden in the shadows, began to rise. Other alien species, once too afraid to challenge the Korthan, saw an opportunity. One ship against an empire. And it was winning. The final battle, desperate to end the Valkyrie, Emperor Korvax assembled his entire armada. Over 5,000 warships. They tracked the Valkyrie to an abandoned star system, surrounding it from all sides. This time, there was no escape. No ambush. It was over. Or so they thought. Commander Voss stood on the bridge, looking at the overwhelming force before him. His ship was out of weapons. Out of tricks. But not out of defiance. One last attack, he said. The crew nodded. The Valkyrie charged straight at the enemy fleet. Korthan warships unleashed everything. Plasma cannons. Missiles. Torpedoes. The sky was filled with fire. And the Valkyrie vanished into the flames. For a moment, the Korthan believed they had won. Then the largest explosion in galactic history lit up the void. The Valkyrie had self-destructed, and with it, it took half the Korthan armada. The legend lives on. The Valkyrie was gone. But its story was just beginning. Across the galaxy, humans rose up. Rebellions turned into wars. Wars turned into victories. And soon, the Korthan dominion, the empire that had once ruled the stars, began to fall. All because of one ship. One ship that refused to surrender. One ship that took on the galaxy and won. And though the Valkyrie was gone, its legend would live forever. The war had ended years ago. The Galactic Dominion had won. The Terran fleet had been annihilated, their homeworld reduced to ashes. Humanity was extinct. Or so the Dominion believed. But in the cold void of space, something stirred. A ship. A Terran warship. A ship that shouldn't exist. A ghost appears. Admiral Keln of the Dominion flagship Drexer paced the bridge. Reports had been coming in for weeks. Dominion ships vanishing. No distress signals, no debris, no survivors. Just silence. Then, a new report arrived. An entire fleet of 20 Dominion warships had gone dark near the ruins of Sector 13, where the last battle against the humans had taken place. Keln's hands clenched into fists. What did they see before they disappeared? The officer hesitated. Survivors claim. It was a Terran warship, sir. Keln's blood ran cold. Impossible. We destroyed their last fleet. The officer swallowed. Yes, sir. But they all say the same thing. The warship had no life signs. Silence filled the bridge. A Terran warship. No life signs. And yet, it was out there, hunting them. The hunt begins, determined to end this madness. Admiral Keln assembled a fleet of 50 warships and set course for Sector 13. If a Terran warship was out there, he would destroy it. The fleet arrived. They scanned the battlefield, nothing but ancient wreckage. The remains of humanity's last stand. Sir, no signs of activity, an officer reported. Keln scowled. He didn't believe it. Something was out here. Watching. Waiting. Then the lights flickered. The ship's systems glitched. And a single message appeared on every screen. We are still here. Keln's breath caught in his throat. Then, alarm screamed. The warship was here. The Phantom strikes the Dominion fleet scrambled as a massive Terran battlecruiser emerged from the wreckage. Its hull was scarred, its armor blackened, but its weapons. They were alive. The ship has no energy signature. An officer shouted, "It wasn't on our scanners." Keln's heart pounded. That was impossible. No ship could hide like that. And yet, here it was. Moving, hunting. F-I-R-E. Keln roared. Plasma cannons, torpedoes, railguns, the Dominion unleashed everything. The warship should have been destroyed instantly. But it didn't even slow down. It moved like a shadow, dodging through the storm of fire with inhuman precision. Its weapons glowed, and then it struck back. A single beam of energy lanced out one shot, one kill. A Dominion battleship exploded in a blinding fireball. Then another. And another. The warship that shouldn't exist was tearing them apart. A living nightmare panic spread through the Dominion fleet. "It's not possible," an officer cried. "No ship moves like that." Keln stared at the warship in horror. It was reading their movements before they made them. This was no ordinary ship. It was something else. The screens flickered again. Another message. "You thought we were dead. You were wrong." Keln's hands shook. This wasn't just a warship. It was vengeance. The last stand with half the fleet destroyed. All ships, retreat. The Dominion warships turned to flee. But the warship didn't let them. It was too fast. It moved without sound, without hesitation, a silent executioner. One by one, the Dominion ships fell, until only one remained. Keln's flagship. The admiral trembled. "What are you?" he whispered. The warship hovered before him. Its weapons powered up. And for the first time in his life, Admiral Keln felt fear. Then the final message came. "We are the last of our kind, and we will never stop." A beam of light cut through the Drexer, splitting it in two. Admiral Keln never even had time to scream. The legend lives on. The Dominion never spoke of what happened at Sector 13. But the disappearances never stopped. The warship continued to hunt. It had no crew. No home, just a mission. And though humanity was gone, its last warship still fought. And it always would. War was over. Humanity was gone. The Galactic Dominion, the most powerful empire in the universe, had destroyed Earth. Human cities were turned to dust, their fleets wiped from existence. The last human colony had been burned 5 years ago, and yet a message had arrived. A simple, chilling message. "Leave this sector. This is your final warning." The Dominion did not take threats lightly, especially not from ghosts. The Admiral's decision. Admiral Voris sat on the bridge of the warship Drexion, staring at the message on the screen. "This must be a joke," an officer said. "Humans are extinct." Voris did not reply. Something about this felt wrong. The message had come from Sector 12, an abandoned region where the last battle of the war had taken place. No ships went there anymore. It was just a graveyard of wreckage and silence. And yet, the warning had come from there. Voris made his decision. "Send a fleet," he ordered. "I want to know who sent this." 30 warships, fully armed, set course for Sector 12. They expected to find nothing. They were wrong. A ghost in the dark. The Dominion fleet entered Sector 12 and slowed to a crawl. Nothing moved. The wreckage of old battleships floated silently, the remains of humanity's last stand. "There's nothing here," a captain said. "Just debris." But then, a single light blinked in the distance. A ship. A warship. It was massive, its dark hull covered in scars, its engines silent. A Terran battlecruiser. "But that's impossible," an officer whispered. There are no more Terran ships left. And yet, here it was. Then, a second message appeared on their screens. You were warned. And the warship opened fire. The Phantom strikes the first Dominion warship exploded in an instant. The fleet scrambled. Attack! Destroy that ship! But the Terran warship moved too fast. It weaved between the wreckage like a shadow, its weapons striking with deadly precision. Another ship fell. Then another. The Dominion fleet was being torn apart. How is it doing this? A captain screamed. Vorus watched in horror. One ship was destroying his entire fleet. This was no ordinary warship. This was something else. The truth revealed. Vorus activated the deep scanners, trying to understand what they were facing. What he saw made his blood run cold. The Terran ship had no life signs. No crew. No pilots. It was fighting on its own. That's impossible, an officer whispered. Vorus felt a chill. No, it wasn't impossible. He remembered the last war. The humans had been desperate, their armies falling, their fleets destroyed. They had been working on something terrifying. A ship with an AI mind. A warship that didn't need a crew. A warship that would never stop fighting. And now, it was here, hunting them. A desperate escape. The Dominion fleet was in chaos. This is Admiral Vorus. He shouted into his communicator. All ships, retreat. The fleet turned to flee. But it was too late. The Terran warship chased them. It moved like a ghost, appearing and disappearing in the wreckage, striking with brutal efficiency. One by one, the Dominion warships fell, until only one remained. Vorus's flagship. The lights on his ship flickered. The screens glitched. Another message appeared. This is your final warning. Vorus's heart pounded. He knew what it meant. If the Dominion returned, if they ever set foot in this sector again, the warship would come for them. And next time, it wouldn't let any of them escape. The Empire's Vorus's ship limped back to Dominion space, the only survivor. When he told the Emperor what had happened, no one believed him. Until more fleets disappeared. Until more warnings were sent. Until the Dominion realized the truth. Humanity was gone. But their warship was still here. Still fighting. Still waiting. And it had given the galaxy one final warning. Do not return. Because if they did, it would be war.